Hi everyone, now let's start about DateTime module in Python with newly introduced in Python 3.9 zoneinfo library to handle different time zone time. And before having a practical understanding of date times, let's understand its usefulness with two examples. So there are two types of people are watching this video. One is who have knowledge about DateTime module and the one who are just new to the DateTime module. So people who have some knowledge of DateTime module take this task as an exercise. So calculate the time difference in hour of these two dates and your code solution should not be more than 3 lines of code as within few seconds I'll show you a 2 lines of solution. And people who are just new to the DateTime module, so just think that if you will calculate the time difference between these dates in hours, what are the steps will be involved. Pause the video and just give a couple of minutes of that thinking. That will give you a lot of clarity about the difficulty involved in this task and how DateTime module solve this difficulty. And now let me show you my solution. So this is the function I created. If you look at it, it's just almost just the 2 lines of code with the help of DateTime module, and we could calculate the hours of these two dates with just, and this is the hours of two days. I just write for days so that have a better clarity between the times of these two dates. Now let's move towards even the more complex problem. So let's say you are going in an interview in NASA and there was a specific type of pattern comets was seen 3 times in the history, and these are the time of event and these are the places where that comet was seen. So this time of the event was registered as per their location time zones, and this is the current time. So you have been asked in the interview to calculate the number of hours from the time of the event. So you have to calculate this is the current time and this is the time of the event. So you have to subtract time of the event from the current time and then convert it into that the number of hours. So again, this function which we created will work with this task also. So here I have put our first date. So this is the time of the interview which we went over here, and this is the first day of the comet was seen, and we just ran this function and we provide the zoneinfo information with the help of zoneinfo class which we imported from the zoneinfo library, and we got a solution. And these were the number of hours. About 1.4 million hours have been passed since that comet was seen in 1872. Now you understand that how useful this DateTime module with zoneinfo library is, that what kind of a complex task you could solve with just 2 lines of code. So I hope now you have learned its usefulness. Now let's understand this module with the practicals. And guys, before going ahead with this video, please go to the video description and open this module notes link which will take you to the notes of this module which we will use throughout this video. So DateTime module is available in the standard Python library. So let's make the import of DateTime module. Now let's create the first DateTime object. And to create the DateTime object, we need to call the DateTime classes. So we have these DateTime classes, DateTime, date and time, and we can create 3 kinds of DateTime object. So first, let's deal with this DateTime class, DateTime, which provide the information of both dates and time. Let's call dt a variable and let's refer the DateTime module which we have imported, then refer the DateTime class from DateTime module and provide the arguments. As to create a DateTime object, we need to provide 3 mandatory arguments. So the first one is the year. second is the month, and third is the day. And make sure you follow this order: year, month, and day. Now let's see, let's print this DateTime object, and we can use a REPR representation also, as DateTime class provides two different kinds of representation: string and REPR. So let's see both of these representations. Now we have both of these representation of this DateTime object which we have just created. And remember one thing, whenever you add these arguments, do not add any leading zeros. Let's see what will happen if I'll add a leading zero to this month February argument. Let's add a zero over there and run the code. If you look at, it has raised an error, syntax error, that is. Leading zeros in decimal integer literals are not permitted. So make sure that you don't do that mistake. And we can refer these classes by a direct import also. So let's see that part also. So now let's import this datetime class. Instead of referring by datetime module again and again, let's import them directly. So from datetime module, import datetime class. And if you want to see the how this class is written in the datetime module, just go on this class, take a cursor over there, and if you are using a VS Code editor, then make a right click, go to definition. This will open this box. Then go to right hand side and you will see class over there. Then click it over there. That will take you to the datetime class documentation, and you can read the whole documentation instead of going and searching in the all files of Python interpreter. Now we know that now we can import these classes directly. So now let's create another object, or let's see first the help of this datetime class which we have just imported. So now if you look at the help of this datetime class, it says year, month, and day are the required argument to create the datetime objects, which we just saw that, and we can add these arguments also: time, information, hour, minute, second, microseconds, and tz info. And tz info is the information about time zones, and by default tz info is none. Yeah, tz info may be none, and by default tz info is none. If you are not providing any tz info is argument, that means we are working with a naive datetime object. If you will provide the information of tz info, so that a particular time datetime object will be and time zone aware datetime object, because in this tz info we will be providing a time zone information. So for now, let's work on the local date and time objects only, and then we will shift towards the more advanced time zone specific date and time objects. Now let's go. No, happening yet. Now let me make the font bit bigger. Will be better. Now we have created these date and time objects. So now let's see a full-fledged date and time object and go to the notes. And this file notes underscore date and time, you can find those links which I told you in the beginning to refer while watching this video. Now let's get back and copy and paste this date and time object. So if you look at, we have provided all the arguments apart from tz info, and this date and time object contains all the information about day as well as the time. Now let's print this datetime object. So we got the whole representation, string representation of this datetime object. And a Jupyter notebook always returns a REPR format. So this is a REPR representation, and print function returns a string representation. Now let's focus one more thing, that whenever you provide these arguments like this year, month, and days, they all should be or must be within a specific ranges. So let's me take you to the again notes. So these are the ranges. Even year is also having a range, 1 to 9,999. So that means Python datetime module is designed to do calculations of year within this range. Beyond that, datetime module is not designed to work. And then others are easy to understand, as month cannot be more than 12 or 0, and it's pretty easy to understand, so make a read. So now let's go back to the practical part. So we go down. Let me show you like what will happen if we will add the year, let's say 11,000. So if you look at it, it says, or it raises a value error, and year 11,000 is out of range because that's the highest range, 9,099. Let me make back to 2020. So now we know how to work all these datetime objects, or how to create these datetime objects. And now you will see that we can retrieve all these properties from a datetime object. So let's see how to do that. Let's say we have this datetime object, and I wanna know what is the hour. Hour. So as hour is fifth, so we got a hour property in return. Let's say I wanna see the day, as day is the one, so we retrieve the day. The same way, all these properties can be retrieved from a datetime object. And in the notes, I have revealed that. So this is the datetime object, and I have retrieved all the properties of the datetime object. So now let's see that how can we get the current date and time from date and time objects. So from date and time class, we have a method now, and this method will provide the current date and time, as this is a string representation, sorry, REPR representation. So let me see with the string representation, what is the current time. This is the current time, and now is the method to get the current time. And there's the same method is the today that does the same thing. It also provides only current date and time, no difference. So with these two methods, we can get the current date and time. And there are some more properties we can retrieve from these datetime objects. So we were working with this datetime object, so let me show you that part also. So as we retrieve these property, we have seen that how to retrieve the day, hour, all these properties. Let's say I just wanna get the date, not the time representation. So what can I do? So I have a date function. So let me show you. From this date object, apply this date, or I would rather say method. Let me show you. So if you look at it, has given a date class in return, and this is the only date information. It has removed the time information from that. Same way we have a time also, time. So we have retrieved the time information. And let's see the over here. Yeah, print time. Yeah, so now you could see that we had retrieved the date and we had retrieved the time from this datetime object. And we can apply this today method on this date also. So first let's import this date class directly from the DateTime module. From DateTime import, yeah, from, that was a mistake either. So date dot today. So it has provided me the today's date, and let's see this thing in a string representation. This is the today's date, and we can get the a weekday also from these objects. So let me get that. For that, let me change the year 2021, and for now I'm using a f string formatting, so, and which we will cover up later on. So let me show you just for a sample that how can we retrieve a direct weekday from a datetime object. If you look at this day is the Monday, so 1st November 2021 was the Monday, and the other two methods we have is the ISO weekday and weekday. So in ISO weekday, Monday is 1 and Sunday is 7, and in weekdays Monday is 0 and up to Sunday is 6. So let's see that part. So let me make print over here. Let's print this part. Let's print the other part. So let's see this dd object. While you use this weekday, so as weekday is represented by 0, so I'll get in return 0 as dd object. Monday is represented by in ISO weekday by 1, so we'll get a 1. If you look at, we got a 0 and we got a 1. What will happen if we'll use the Wednesday this day? So because the 3rd November on 2021 will be the Wednesday, right? So the weekday is 2nd and ISO weekday is 3rd. So now we know how to get the weekdays also. So guys, now let's start about date time calculations. Let's get back to our first example, what we started in this beginning of the video. Let's go to there. We wanted to calculate the time difference between two dates. So let's make a direct subtraction. So first let's create a datetime object. So let's say first one is the car date, and to create a datetime object, first let's import from datetime module, just import the datetime, and date was 2022, third 1, and hour was 5, and the from date was date time 20 22 1 and third hour. Now just calculate, just see what we get when we make that subtraction. So just given with the variable td, so car date minus from date, and just print td. So we got a days back and we got a time back. So 2 hours, 759 days plus 2 hours. So this was the time delta information. And let's see what we got in return. This is what is it. So let's print type td. So this is the time delta object, and what do we get if we see the same thing, this object with the REPR representation? So we see days and number of seconds, and these seconds are not the total time of the seconds. These seconds are just what these 2 hours they have converted into seconds, as 1 hour contains 3600 seconds, as so there were 2 hours, so it converted. So 759 days plus these seconds is this time delta object contains. Now our task is, what was our first task? We want to calculate the number of hours between two days. So in date time, this time delta object have a function called total seconds. So we can use this function. So let's use TD. So let's say hours is equal to TD into unused this total seconds. So and just print out this hours, and this is the seconds, not hours. So let's, instead of the total, let me call this total seconds and print seconds. So we got a this total number of seconds. This is the total time. This is not this second, but this is the whole time between these two dates in terms of seconds we got with the help of this total second function, which is available in the time delta object. As this, any date subtraction from one date to another returns a time delta object, and time delta object have this method total seconds, which return the time between two events in terms of seconds. And if you want to make it into hours, it's pretty simple. So what we need to do, we need to do just seconds divided by 3600, as 1 hour contains. So we got an hour between 2 days. So that's how easy it is. So now let's understand a bit more about this time delta object. So first let's directly import this time delta object from DateTime, import time delta. And if we look at its, so let me REPR representation of this time delta, REPR representation of this time delta, it gives us days and seconds. That means we can retrieve from this only days and seconds. So td.days can be retrieved, and we can retrieve the seconds and td.seconds. Now let's see a full-fledged time delta object. Let's go to nodes. If you see, this is a whole time delta object. Let me copy it. Let me go back. Let me paste it. Yeah. So we can create a whole time delta object like this. So what's the advantage of this? We can add and subtract this time delta object from any time, and that time will get a return back. So let's say 1 hour time delta. So I want to create 1 hour, 1 hour 1 day. So let's say 1 hour 1 day. This is a time delta object which contains the time delta. So we have this days argument, so days, which contains 1 day, and let's say an hour is equal to 1 hour. And let's say what's the date. So let's give it a date time. Let's give it this date time. Copy and paste it, and just print td. What's wrong? Yeah, this should be hours. So this time in hours. And just do one thing, just give it in the microseconds also. Microseconds, let's give this one. Let's give it in the milliseconds also. It 4 3. And now I want to add this time in this the date and time. 1 day, 1 hour, microsecond, and these milliseconds. So just added this thing. What we do? We need to do this new time, new dt is equal to dt plus 1 hour 1 day. So what we got to this new dt? We got a new time, and you'll see that it has added everything. So let's print it out everything. Let's print out everything. So it has added this time into this. So that's how we can do date time calculation with the help of this time delta object. But remember one thing, we can retrieve only these things. Let's print this delta object again. Print REPR this delta object. So you'll see that we can retrieve only days, seconds, and microseconds from a time delta object. Beyond that, any other thing we cannot retrieve. And that is also having some implications which you might could find it out. It's pretty useful. Let's say I wanna just get the seconds from that. So I get these seconds from this time delta object. Now we know that how to work and create these time delta objects. So again, after this whole exercise, now your task is to create a time delta function which could calculate time difference in hours. So which was our first task. Calculate that function which I created by yourself. So guys, now let's start about time zone aware time in Python. If you look at in the naive time zone, TZ info was none, and by default it was none, so we never needed to enter this information. But when we want to create a time zone aware time zone, that means we need to pass the time zone information in this TZ info argument. So let's learn how do we pass that. So this time we will use zoneinfo library. There are other third-party libraries also, pytz or like dateutil. We can use that, but be aware how you use pytz, because that might leads you to the serious error or bugs. So that we will show you in a next video, which will be based on only about time zone aware time in a detailed manner. So let's see this part. So now let's import this newly introduced zoneinfo library and import the zoneinfo class from this zoneinfo library. So as now I want to create a New York time zone information. So first I need to search the New York time string. So how will I search a New York time string? So for that, to search the New York zone string, I need to use this zoneinfo library available zone. So for z in zoneinfo library module, so we have this method available time zone, and this is a it's a iterator, not a method. And then if I'll print this z, I'll get all the time zones. But now searching in this time zone in New York is a really tedious task to do. So it's better way if you are using Jupyter notebook and if you know about data viewer function. So we can use a empty list and then li.append the z. Let's run it. And if you go to variables, here you will find this data viewer. And in this data viewer, you can find the New York time string. So New York. So this is the New York time. Let's copy and paste this New York time string. Let's close the data viewer. And then just go create a aware time. So create a object and create a aware time. And in this aware time, we just copy and paste the same code and just provide this tz info and now provide the zone info object in this. So let's create a New York zone info object with this variable nytz and just use this class zone info class which we imported from the zone info library. So we'll just import this zone info class, then provide the string which we have just copied. Sorry, not this one. Go to again data viewer, just copy this New York string. New York string was this America, New York. Then copy and paste next string this part, and in tz info pass this nytz argument. So nytz argument pass it over here. Then print this dt is aware, dt object aware time. If you look at now, we have one is the naive information and now one the aware object, and this aware object contains this information, and this is a New York time zone offset from the UTC time. Now you know how to create a time zone aware of any specific time zones. Same way I need to find these strings for any creating any time zone specific time zones. But now let's say I want to get the current time in a specific time zone. So let's say I want to get the Paris time, Paris current time. So for that, I'll use the DateTime dot now method, and here I'll pass a tz argument, which will again use this zone info argument. So let's provide this zone info argument directly. So this zone info object. So for that, now I need to provide the Paris string. So how do I find the Paris string? Again, go to this variables, the data viewer, and in that data viewer just type Paris. This is the Europe Paris and provide this data view. And then just see print Paris. We got the Paris time zone information over here. Or Paris, sorry. I need to provide the Paris here. And now I want to convert this Paris time into a New York time zone time. So how do I do that? So for that, I have this Paris, then use this as time zone function and provide this New York zoneinfo object over there. And then this is the just run it and just use this print function. So now we converted one time Paris time zone to the New York time zone. If you look at the New York is having -5 hours from the UTC time, and all these, what is this UTC time and how to get a specific country time zones and all those things we will learn in a next another video which will create. So please subscribe the channel for all those new upcoming videos, as time zone contains many things, but these are the two specific tasks which we will use widely with our time zone objects, which we have covered, like how to create a time zones, how to get the current time from the time zone, and how to convert one time zone into another time zone. These are the three tasks which we have learned over here. So now let's end this video, and if you want to learn more about the time zone information and how to create get the different countries time zone and which libraries to use for the which task, let's watch my new upcoming videos about time zone aware datetime objects. So thanks guys for watching this video, and please provide a positive feedback in the comment section, and let me know in the comments if you want me to create a new video on any specific topic. If you have learned something new, please like the video and subscribe this channel, as there will be some new video releases every week, and this will be a huge support for me.